Rachel Zegler's career took a serious nosedive after the Snow White disaster, with reports claiming she even fled to New York City to escape the spotlight.
Thank you, Rachel.
On her way out, fans spotted her riding local trains in New York, a stark contrast to the Hollywood lifestyle she once enjoyed. It's honestly shocking how quickly everything fell apart for her. Disney's Snow White remake became notorious for playing to empty theaters, with social media flooded with images of vacant screening rooms. By the fourth weekend, the film had lost over half of its original screenings. With theaters pulling it early to make room for films people actually wanted to see, the box office numbers tell a brutal story. Snow White suffered a staggering 66% drop in its second weekend, putting Disney on track to lose millions.
1, 2.
The film currently stands as one of the lowest-rated movies on IMDb, with a pitiful critics score of just 6 out of 10. It has only generated $143 million globally, nowhere near enough to cover its $250 million production budget, not to mention the additional marketing expenses. The humiliation didn't stop there. One fan posted a TikTok showing she was literally the only person in the theater for a Snow White screening. She stayed briefly before realizing she had the entire place to herself. By mid-April 2025, Snow White had been pulled from between $1,000 to 2,000 venues, with the theater count dropping from approximately 3,500 locations on opening weekend to just 240. Box office trackers confirmed screenings were being canceled at record speed, simply because no one was buying tickets. Reports showed some screenings selling as few as 3 tickets in total, with daily averages plummeting to around $53. By late April, theater owners couldn't justify keeping it on the schedule, especially when films like Minecraft and Captain America: Brave New World were drawing actual crowds. To put things into perspective, while Rachel Zegler's Snow White played to empty seats, Minecraft fans were so enthusiastic they were bringing live chickens into theaters as part of their celebration. The failure wasn't limited to American audiences either. In China, footage surfaced of completely empty IMAX screenings despite Disney's aggressive marketing push. One reporter in Shanghai noted that including himself and a friend, their entire IMAX screening had just 5 people total, even though promotional posters were plastered everywhere, including inside his apartment building's elevator. Rachel Zegler managed to embarrass herself further when she personally showed up at one of these nearly empty theaters, only for a TikTok of her sitting alone to go viral.
We had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole. So she came out and took a large dump on half of the...
At this point, it's clear that Rachel Zegler's Hollywood career is in serious jeopardy. Major studios have reportedly begun reconsidering her for future projects, with insiders revealing that her political statements during the Snow White press tour have made her a high-risk name that many companies are now eager to avoid. Zegler's alleged emotional breakdowns, controlling behavior during filming, and constant political remarks didn't just tank a single movie. They may be the reason Disney is now shelving future woke remakes altogether. The financial damage to Disney is more significant than most initially realized. Snow White isn't just a bad movie, it's now officially being called the biggest flop in Hollywood history. Originally, Disney insiders had hoped the losses would stay around $115 million, but with Snow White's final global gross reaching only about $195 million, losses are now expected to hit closer to $145 million. The bigger story might be that Disney's entire strategy of pushing live-action remakes is collapsing because of this failure. When asked about Disney being labeled too woke in a recent interview, CEO Bob Iger awkwardly admitted he's not entirely sure what the term even means anymore. He responded, "I don't really like the term woke because I think it's an umbrella term that I'm not 100% sure I even know what it means. That said, our primary purpose is to entertain, and where we can entertain responsibly, obviously, we try to do that. We try to have a positive impact on the world, but the first thing we need to do is entertain." Despite Iger's comments, Disney's actions may be speaking louder than words. Thanks to Snow White's flop, the company appears to be reconsidering the future of its live-action remake strategy altogether. Disney has quietly paused production on its next live-action remake, Tangled. Insiders revealed that Tangled was set to be Disney's most expensive live-action adaptation to date, with a budget surpassing even that of Snow White. However, following Snow White's box office disaster and the relentless public backlash, Disney decided to halt Tangled's development immediately. Rachel Zegler's involvement certainly didn't help matters. Sources indicate that even before Snow White collapsed at the box office, Disney executives were already growing uneasy about Zegler's increasingly controversial public image. After the film's failure, major production studios began re-evaluating her for future roles altogether. But this disaster isn't just about one actress or a single bad movie. It now represents the potential collapse of an entire billion-dollar strategy that Disney had been banking its future on. The fallout continues to spread, with Rachel Zegler's reputation taking serious damage as the entertainment industry reassesses its direction moving forward. Taking center stage in the controversy, Rachel Zegler is reportedly in full meltdown mode after facing brutal online trolling for her political comments and the catastrophic failure of Snow White. Insiders claim she may even be seeking therapy to cope with the overwhelming backlash. Meanwhile, her co-stars are beginning to distance themselves from both the project and from her personally. Gal Gadot, who played the evil queen, recently addressed the situation without directly naming Rachel. Gal suggested that the Snow White project failed due to a lack of teamwork behind the scenes. According to reports, Disney executives pressured Gadot to publicly support the company's messaging and agenda for the film, but she refused, understanding the potential risk to her own career. One insider reported a confrontation where Gal directly told Rachel she was solely responsible for the film's disastrous box office performance. Disney allegedly asked Gadot to help clean up the movie's image and defend Rachel publicly, but she declined. It's becoming increasingly clear that Gal, like many others involved, was frustrated that Rachel's political remarks and off-screen behavior had derailed the entire project and tarnished everyone's reputation. Rachel's controlling behavior wasn't just fan speculation. It was evident during filming, according to behind-the-scenes sources. She reportedly tried to dominate creative decisions, particularly around how Snow White should be portrayed. In a now infamous press interview, Rachel criticized the original 1937 film, saying, "The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There is a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. So we didn't do that this time." Her comments were seen by many as dismissive, not only toward the original story that has charmed generations, but also toward her co-star Andrew Burnap, who worked hard to portray the prince. Instead of embracing the classic romantic fairy tale, Rachel's version of Snow White was reimagined as a dominant, independent woman with no romance and no prince, a complete departure from the story Disney built its brand on. Between alienating her co-stars, dividing Disney's executives, and angering fans worldwide, Rachel Zegler didn't just ruin one movie. She effectively burned bridges across an entire industry. Rachel Zegler's Snow White disaster has evolved far beyond a mere box office flop. It's become a full-blown Hollywood cautionary tale. From over 1,200 theaters pulling the film to Disney reportedly shelving future live-action remakes and her own co-stars refusing to publicly defend her, the collapse appears complete. Rachel's politically charged interviews, controlling behavior behind the scenes, and relentless commentary didn't just damage a single film. They may have destroyed a billion-dollar strategy Disney was relying on. Now, even her future in Hollywood looks uncertain, as major studios begin distancing themselves from the controversy she now brings with her name. The Snow White remake was intended to be Disney's triumphant continuation of its live-action adaptation success story. Instead, it has become the poster child for what happens when studios lose touch with what audiences actually want. Theater owners couldn't justify keeping screenings going when ticket sales dropped to as low as 3 per showing, with daily averages falling to around 53, a catastrophic figure for any major release. Industry analysts point to multiple factors behind the film's failure. While Rachel's controversial remarks during press tours played a key role, Rachel Zegler's Snow White played a significant role in the film's downfall. Its departure from the beloved source material alienated the very audience Disney was trying to attract. By removing the romance, changing fundamental character motivations, and attempting to modernize a classic fairy tale beyond recognition, Disney created something that satisfied neither fans of the original nor new audiences. The financial implications for Disney are staggering, with losses now expected to reach $145 million. Snow White represents one of the most expensive mistakes in recent Hollywood history. For context, Disney could have produced several mid-budget original films for the cost of this single flop. The decision to pause production on Tangled further shows that the company is recognizing the need to reevaluate its approach to these remakes. Disney is finally recognizing the need to reevaluate its approach to these remakes. Rachel Zegler's career trajectory has taken a particularly harsh turn. Once considered a rising star after her debut in West Side Story, she now faces an uncertain future in Hollywood. Others have even game-stopped Snow White entirely after Half House stopped. Insiders suggest major studios are hesitant to cast her in high-profile roles, fearing her tendency to go off script during press tours, and her apparent difficulty collaborating with castmates. The contrast between Snow White's empty theaters and the crowds flocking to see faithful adaptations or truly original content is striking. Fans stayed away from Snow White in record numbers. Perhaps most damaging for Disney is the potential long-term impact on their live-action remake strategy. These remakes had become a reliable profit center, with films like The Lion King and Aladdin generating over $1 billion worldwide. If Snow White's failure indicates a broader shift in audience tastes, Disney may need to fundamentally rethink its content. Strategy for the coming years. For Rachel Zegler, the path forward remains unclear. Hollywood has seen career comebacks before, but rarely from failures of this magnitude. Combined with behind-the-scenes controversy, her reported controlling behavior during production, and her willingness to mock the source material during press tours, Zegler has created a perception problem that won't be easily overcome. The Snow White disaster serves as a reminder that even the biggest studios with the most recognizable IP aren't immune to box office disaster when they lose sight of what made their stories beloved in the first place.